All right. Looks like we got a pretty good group. So we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to today's Skills Kickstart session on Encompass Mobile Basics for Warehouse. Your presenters today are Alex and Josh. My name is Jossie. I'm going to be your facilitator today. We want to make sure that you get all of your questions answered throughout the session. So make sure you throw them in that Q&A or chat feature down at the bottom, and I will make sure to get those over to your presenters. And with that, I will hand it off to you two.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jossie. Like Jossie mentioned, this is the Skills Kickstart session for Encompass Mobile Basics in the warehouse side. We also have another webinar today for Encompass Mobile Basics on sales and delivery. So if you're going to both, happy to see you there. For today, my name is Alex Luna. I am a customer enablement specialist here at Encompass. I've been with the company for over 3.5 years now. Started as a support analyst on e-commerce, moved into this role, worked with pretty much everything in our company, and then kind of focus on operations. So happy to share this with you. And today with me is Josh.
Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Bell, and I'm a support analyst one. I've been with Encompass for about 2 years now, and I help provide support for our customers for features like Encompass Mobile. I do have a focus on operations and warehousing as well. But yeah, to go ahead and get into our agenda for today, we're going to be going over logging in and syncing with Encompass Mobile, navigating the warehouse app, receiving purchase orders and putting away inventory, the replenishment process, how to move product in the app, counting inventory and auditing it using pallet inquiry, and then the picking workflow in ePick Plus. And as Jazzy mentioned, if there are any questions that come up during our presentation, please feel free to put those in the chat. We're happy to help answer those as time permits. Yeah, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Alex to get started.
Awesome. Thanks again, Josh. So, as we're going to get started, the main thing that we're really trying to do today is get familiar with our warehouse functions. So, we're going to kind of do this as a day in the life of a warehouse where we're going to see our trucks come in, we're going to receive those trucks, we're going to go through some moving of inventory, making sure it's moving into its proper place within the warehouse, doing some counting, and as well as overseeing the whole picking process. So, kind of just seeing all the daily functions that we would do in a warehouse. Now, the one thing I do want to mention before we really get into this is that we are not going to cover any of the server-side processes in this webinar, as far as pick rules, directed replenishment, directed inventory count, just because those are on the server side and we are focusing on Encompass Mobile today. So I will go ahead and kind of briefly touch on those a little bit later, but again, we're not focusing on them. So with that, we're going to go ahead and hop into our warehouse functions. With that, I do want to just tell you right up front that we are going to go through a few of the functions and then I'm going to hand it off to Josh and he's going to show you a demo and how to use them while I do the overview. Then we're going to hop back. I'm going to tell you about a few more and then do a demo again. So that way you know the flow of how this webinar is going to work. That way you can be prepared. So to start, we're going to start with our first warehouse function, which is going to be receiving. So when a receiving truck hits the dock, we're going to have two options beginning of that day. We can either choose to put the products away immediately. That way it gets into our inventory. We can put it away into our pick stock or in our back stock. Or let's say our dock is really slammed or we just don't have the manpower for that day. We also have the availability to put that shipment in a receiving bin and put it away at a later time. We want it to be within that day because we don't want it to be longer than a day, but we can have the ability to put it away at a different time. Now, there are a few other options that we can utilize in this receiving function. So a few of them are going to be add products. Let's say that we have a shipment that came in and our vendor or supplier maybe sent us a new product that they want us to try to sell and it just wasn't on our original shipment list. We can go ahead and click this add product button to then add it to that receive, showing that it is coming into our warehouse. Another example of how we would use this function is if we have two products that have two different expiration dates or two different code dates, we could then add that product as well to just show, hey, this is the same product, but this one's going to expire in March and this one's going to expire in April. So that's how we would use that add products. We also have the ability to add pictures. This is great for accountability. If a pallet comes in and we receive it and it's just broken, let's just say it all got damaged, we could take a picture to show that proof and just for documenting sake. Within this function, we also have the ability to edit receiving details. And this is a really helpful tool for kind of understanding the why and the when of just what happened with the receiving. We're able to document the temperature, how long it took to unload it, when it arrived on the dock, and just a great thing to document and just to make sure that we have. Now, it's not required, but again, it is a great practice just to make sure that we are keeping track and we are receiving these products as we normally would or as we should. Now, the last button that I want to talk about the receiving before we move on is going to be the hide zero quantities button. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to tap this to hide products where the ordered quantity is zero. And how I like to think about this is its best way to kind of clear the noise from ASN updates and solely focus on what's actually on the truck. Now, the reasoning behind this is because Encompass doesn't delete data. That comes from an ASN. We're only going to update it. So if a supplier sends us multiple updates with changes, those original lines might show up at zero. And so we can go in and click this button and it's just going to hide those zeros for us. So that's how we get into the receiving. Now, let's say that we got that in, we received this morning, but our dock was just really slammed and we just were not able to put anything away immediately. And that's where our next function of put away could come into play. Again, we weren't able to do it right away, so we kind of waited a little bit. And while we waited, that inventory was sitting in our receiving bin, but now we're able to get it to be pickable and put it away. So I like to think of put away as giving your inventory a permanent address or a permanent home. And when we open the function and we go straight to our receiving bin, we can see all the products that are just sitting on our dock or in that receiving bin. So it shows us that availability, it shows us what's there. We also have the capability to just search individually. So let's say I know that there is a Wind and Clouds Nimbus Nectar in our receiving and I need to put that away right now. I can directly search for that too instead of just seeing all the products, but that show products is going to show you everything. Now, one trend that we are seeing a lot more often in our high volume warehouses is more of a gather and move mentality or method, just kind of showing you where you don't have to walk one product or one case from receiving to its slot. You don't have to do it one at a time, walk back and forth. We can actually, if we have that space, put a lot more of those cases on the same pallet and put them away at the same time. So this is really useful, especially if you have that forklift, you want to just grab multiple cases, put it on the same pallet, and put them all away at the same time. So we are seeing that a lot more, and it is a great action to use moving forward. So I just wanted to call that out. Now, as receiving and put away really do go hand in hand, the main thing I like to remember with these, excuse me, is that receiving is going to get our products in the building and put away is going to get it ready to sell. So we're not wanting our products to sit homeless. We don't want our profits to sit homeless. So we want to make sure that once we receive those products, we are putting them away. So that way we can get that inventory into our pick slots ready to be picked. Now, as we kind of change our mentality into picking, we're going to also talk about ePick Plus. Now, ePick Plus is really the heartbeat of our warehouse. I did do a previous skills kickstart on this last season. So if you want to go learn a lot more about it, if you want to see all the updates, all the UI functions, all the features that you can utilize, I highly recommend going to take a look at that just because today we're just going to go over the main key points about it and just a quick overview. So again, highly recommend that other session just to go take a gander at. Now, with ePick Plus, one of the cool things that we do with it now is it allows us to assign pallets based on your designated teams and by truck loading priority. So this is going to ensure that the first pallets picked are going to be the last ones that are loaded. And this is really going to help keep your dock clear and just put this flow in a more logical order. Now, we also know that every warehouse picks differently. So with that, we offer a lot of flexible kind of guided experiences that we can utilize for confirmation methods. So we can use our voice, we can use scanning with ePick Plus. ePick Plus also allows us to use other devices now. So we can have Android devices instead of just solely iOS. Again, if you want to learn more about that, go check out the other one. But this flexibility really reduces the fatigue and keeps pace with the high volume without sacrificing that accuracy. Now, finally, with ePick Plus, before we get into some other ones, is I just want to preface that ePick Plus reaches far beyond the warehouse walls. So when our team scans those pallet tags, we are digitally communicating that critical date, that batch information directly to our retailer. So it's not just a move of data, it's more of this kind of data handshake that ensures our customers are seeing and receiving the freshest product possible. So it's reaching far beyond just the warehouse and going to your retailers as well. Now, with that, we're going to move on to our next function, which is going to be warehouse search. I believe that this is a tool that every warehouse user needs. So let's say that we are in our picking process, the warehouse is buzzing, but as a warehouse manager, we're walking down the aisle, we're just making sure everything's good. But we walk up to this case of silly strawberry that's just sitting in the middle of the aisle. It's not in a bin. It's not where it's supposed to be because I know Wind and Cloud should be on the whole opposite side of the warehouse. And it's just there. And we don't know what's happening with it. What we can utilize warehouse search for is pretty much our detective or our digital detective. So with the warehouse search, we can scan that case and see all the information displayed about it. It's going to see its current status, the bin it belongs to, if there was any movement history, and it just really allows us to figure out how it ended up on the floor or in that space to begin with. Now, it's a great digital tool, kind of detective, so we can see these things, but it's also a great action hub where we can trigger specific actions like making a move. We can start a count if we need to. We can see the bin history. We can even edit bin inventory. So, a few functions that we do have capable in the warehouse search. And I do want to touch base on a few of those because they are important. Now, I'm not going to talk about Move just yet because Move, I think, is its own function and we want to make sure that we give it the spotlight it deserves. But the two other functions within Warehouse Search that I want to touch on is the difference between edit bin inventory and counting. So again, they are not the same. When we are going to use edit bin inventory, we are essentially removing the slot. So we're telling the system to forget that product was ever there or it even lived there. And if the product is physically gone and that bin should be empty for maybe a different SKU, then we could use this edit bin inventory to just disconnect them. So that's the difference between bin and edit bin inventory, whereas a count is if we just need to update the cases that are in that bin, or we just want to confirm how many cases are in that bin, that's where we would use that inventory count function instead. So again, a little bit different with those two functions, but warehouse search overall does give you the total control and detective work that we want to see into each product. Now, with that, I did mention that I'm going to talk a little bit more about the move function. And then after the move function, I'm going to hand it off to Josh to go and take you into Encompass Mobile and just kind of tap around here, show you what it would be like on the actual Encompass Mobile device. So with that, we're going to talk about the move.
Alex,
Warehouse,
really quickly
yeah,
before we move into the next function here, I did have a question about inventory count.
yeah.
For inventory count, is a bin count logged into Encompass the same, whether or not it's from the product page as seen here or from the main page inventory count? So I think we're asking, does it look the same if we do it from warehouse search or from the product page? Is it logged the same on the server?
So yeah, if you're doing a standard inventory count, it will be logged the exact same. It's just one of those where you have the ability to do it in different functions. So if you're doing a warehouse search and you're looking directly at that product, we are just physically counting the inventory for that product and what bin it's going into. Whereas if we were solely doing inventory count function by itself, then that's going to prompt us to select the bin, which I'm going to talk about a little later, and then you would count everything within that bin. So you can do it differently and do a product versus a bin. Regardless, you're still counting that product where it should be and just counting that product in. So let me know if that answered your question or if we need to go a little deeper as well.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, awesome. So with that, we're going to talk about the move function. Again, I wanted to put this a little separately because it is a little different from warehouse search. Just kind of we talked about how inventory can look or inventory count can look a little differently as well throughout the warehouse. Move has its own function in Encompass Mobile. It isn't just in warehouse search. There's actually a bar that says move. So another kind of scenario that we can utilize with this is we just don't want one of our products to be in this bin anymore. It's kind of just not getting the foot traffic it needs, and we want it to go into bin I9 instead of C15. So we can go here and use that move function to move that physically into that next bin just at a higher volume and make sure that that whole product line or multiple products are getting moved at that time. Now, the main rule that I want to say with move is that if it moves in the warehouse or if it moves on the floor, it's moving in Encompass. And this is where my favorite line comes in, where you don't lie to Encompass. We want to make sure that everything that is physically being done in the warehouse is also being replicated in Encompass Mobile because we don't want any of that information to be lost or just changed in any way. So again, anything that is moved on the floor is moved in Encompass. Now, one thing I want to state with this as well is I understand things happen in a warehouse. There could be an emergency, you get pulled away, maybe your manager tells you that you need to go do something else right away, but you were in the middle of a move. You had that product in your hand and should have been in Encompass Mobile, but you didn't physically put it in the new bin yet. So it's just sitting in this virtual pocket called My Inventory. Again, you weren't able to finish it. So this is where that biggest source of ghost stock comes in because no one is able to see that product. It's not in the from bin, it's not in that to bin. It's just sitting in your virtual bin on your Encompass Mobile. So you can go to the My Inventory just to kind of see what was left over. And I highly recommend making sure that your My Inventory is set to 0 before leaving for the day because great practice is nothing should be in the My Inventory because we don't want it to be living in this virtual pocket. We want to make sure it got put away, it got moved, it got done before we end. So again, we understand emergencies happen, but just make sure that if you don't finish it, go take a look at that My Inventory because it could still be in transit. So another thing I wanted to call out there. And for warehouse managers, you can see who is still in the middle of a move. It will just tell you, for example, if I was in the middle of a move and Josh came over and looked, he can see, hey, it's still in your transit box, Alex. You should finish moving that. So there are ways to see that. But again, main rule, making sure it moves on the floor, moves in Encompass, and it's no inventory in the My Inventory. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Josh to show you a few of these features in action.
Thank you, Alex. Let me go ahead and pull up our simulator here. Okay, so here we are on the home page of Encompass Mobile. We're just going to go ahead and click into the warehouse. Now, one thing I did want to call out when you're logging into the warehouse here is that you are in live inventory. So you don't have to sync every time you do something like you would in other places in the app. So it's a little bit more convenient. But we'll go ahead and select the location here. And the first thing I wanted to show you is receiving. So I'm going to click into receiving. And so you're going to see a list of dates here. These are your receiving dates for purchases that are in the system. There are a couple different ways to actually view this. So there is the list view that's kind of used by default, which you can sort as well. There's the calendar view, which kind of just gives you a better, I guess, whole view of the month itself, if you kind of prefer that. And then you can also scan the pallet tag or the UPC, or type it in as well. Yeah, let's say we have our purchase for today, the 12th, and we're just going to receive this wind and clouds purchase. Click in here. And so it is asking if we want to print a pallet tag. There's a couple different options if you want to print on quantity or on receive or not print. If you use license plates in Encompass to track your pallets, you will need to use the print on receive option. But otherwise, it's more about who's doing what and where the printer is. Warehouses with the mobile forklift printer are more likely to use print on quantity entry. But in general, print on receive is going to avoid wasting label paper. But for the purposes of our simulation here, we're just going to hit do not print. And we're going to see all those functions that Alex went over with add products, add pictures, edit receiving details, and hide quantities. But you can also scroll down to the bottom to see our products. Now, once you go ahead and select a product to receive, you're going to get a pop-up that says, do you want to put this item away right away? What you choose is really just going to depend on your warehouse's specific processes. So again, for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to tap no. Okay, and now we're just going to log the specifics. So expiration date here is a required field. You're always going to want to make sure to check the physical packaging and enter the correct date. But we're just going to say that this expires next month. And then we can go ahead and enter the quantities. You will notice that it's going to tell you how many cases are per layer and per pallet for this product. One thing that's cool is that regardless of what you enter, it's going to do the math for you. So for example, if you want to receive a full pallet, you can enter that here, and it's automatically going to total that for you. But if you're receiving a partial load or a pallet plus a partial, you can go ahead and enter something like, let's just say 10 layers, and it's going to go ahead and add that to the purchase as well. Once you're done entering those details, you can go ahead and click Save. And if we scroll back down, we can see that it has updated. And for our next product here, we'll just go ahead and do the same thing. Enter the expiration date. And the quantity. Just say we're receiving 1 pallet. That has updated as well. Now, as Alex had mentioned, if you do want to add another line item for this product, let's say it had a different expiration date, you would just need to use that add products function. So you can just go ahead and click in there. And let me actually go back to make sure I have our ID, which is 3671. Now you would go ahead and scan the product here, but since I can't scan, I'm just going to enter that here. And it's going to show that one line that we've already entered. To create a new line, we'll just click here. You'll enter the new expiration date. Let's just say it's a little bit later. And let's just say we received about 5 layers. And click Save. Then when you scroll down, you are going to see that it has added that new line with the expiration date as well. Yeah, once we're done adding all the products, we can go ahead and hit Receive. It's going to show you a list of everything that you've done just for you to confirm. Now we are seeing a warning up here. This is just saying that it's not matching the shipment data, but because we are just doing a demo here, we can ignore that and go ahead and click Receive. Once we've done that, you'll see that we no longer see 212. That's because there's no longer any purchases to receive for that date, and that shipment has been received. So that is receiving. And then
And Josh,
next,
before we go to the next part, we did have one question on receiving right at the very beginning on the first screen. So, where you clicked on the date instead of clicking on the date when we used the scan function, we had a question about the date part when you're scanning. Why, when you use the scan function, can you not see the date that the PO is for?
do you want to take that one, Alex?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is since you're scanning, what will happen is that date will go onto the next screen once you do scan that pallet for that receiving. So you're seeing the dates right there just to show you what all pallets are coming in on that date. But if you are using that scan function and you do the scan, it's going to automatically populate the date for that PO on that next screen.
Yes, it should still take you to that same screen that we're seeing that you click on the date. We're just doing like the manual version of it, right? But it should still take you to that same screen where the date is at the like top corner. And then I think we had a follow-up question, but if you have multiple POs, you don't know which one to use. Okay. Jeff, we'll for the sake of time, we'll follow up with you afterwards to make sure that we address that. But we'll keep going through the demo for now. Thanks, guys.
All right, so we have officially received the shipment. But since we're moving quickly, we'll say the stock hasn't been shelved yet. So currently that inventory is just sitting in the receiving bin, meaning it's not yet pickable for orders. And to bridge that gap, we're just going to use the put away function. Okay. And so we're going to go ahead and click into the bin here. This is just the location's first initial and receiving. So this is our receiving bin. And if you go ahead and click on Show Products, you are going to see everything that's currently on the dock. But you can also use the search function or scan the product to go ahead and pull that up. Now, thinking back to the purchase that we just received, we know that our Wind and Cloud Silly Strawberry Seltzer has not been put away yet. So I can go ahead and look up that product. Okay, and that's going to go ahead and pull that up. And so we're just going to enter how many cases that we're receiving, which, well, we're really just confirming because it's already has that populated. And then we'll go ahead and click next. Then you'll see the different bin options. And we know that this belongs in bin C15, so we'll just go ahead and click there. Now you will notice that it has moved the product to your transit bin and then into the bin itself. And it is now put away. That's how you will handle any putaways. Next, we're going to go ahead and go over ePick Plus. We'll just go ahead and click in here.
Say begin to continue.
So first thing you will notice here is that if there are orders for multiple dates, it's going to give you a list of dates that you can choose from. Since we only have orders for today, it went ahead and selected that for us. You can use the drop down to select another if you need to. If you're using pick teams, you can select that through this drop down as well as entering the palette type if you're looking for a specific palette type. But to start picking, you're just going to go ahead and click or press start pick. And this takes us to a quick summary showing the total cases and the palette type. And when you hit continue, you're going to see your first product and bin location. And you can use this drop down as well if you need to change the bin, as well as see other locations for that product if that's helpful. But let's say if you were to arrive to this bin and there isn't enough product, you do have a few options as well. So if you think it's going to be filled soon, you can tap View All here. And what this will let you do is you can click one of the other products to just skip ahead. So if I were to click this, this would let me either reset the bin inventory to 0 or request a replenishment. But we're not going to do that for now. We're just going to
C15.
receive the product. And so first thing we want to do is scan here. And we know this belongs in a specific bin here. Sorry, Alex, did you know why it's not letting me do the bin here?
Yeah, it's because we're on a demo site, so we didn't turn off the scan UPC. So
Gotcha.
yeah, for this, like I said, since we're on a simulator, it's not allowing us to scan the UPC. For this, like I said, the ePick Plus, there is a way more in-depth webinar for this, so highly recommend going and take a look at that. Like I said, for the sake of time, we want to make sure that we show you all the other functions, but picking very self-explanatory, takes you through the steps, but highly recommend going to look at that other webinar as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, so since it's not going to let us proceed with the picking there,
Say begin to continue.
we will go ahead and move over to our next function here. So we do have our warehouse search here, which again, as Alex described, that's our digital detective. And so say you're a warehouse manager and you're just walking through the warehouse and you see a case lying around. let's say our Silly Clouds strawberry seltzer, since we've been using that one, and you're not really sure why this is there, and you want to just do a quick search. So I can go ahead and enter the product ID or just scan. That's what you'll likely be doing. And this is going to go ahead and pull up the information for that product. You can identify the product inventory and its location, as well as the bin information, and just see where that specific product lives. Again, as Alex had mentioned, there are several different functions that you can do if you are in warehouse search. There's the move function, inventory count, bin history, and bin inventory edit. But to show you some of these functions, we're just going to go ahead, move to our move function. Okay, so let's say we had that Winning Cloud Silly Strawberry Seltzer, and we just wanted to move it to a different pick bin. Sorry, first thing that you're going to want to do is actually scan the bin. So I know this is in bin C15. But we're going to pull some from bin I9. Okay. And you can just click Show Products to see the full list of items in the bin. We found the Silly Strawberry Seltzer here, so we can go ahead and click that. And let's just say we're going to move those 3 cases. You can click Next. And then you just go ahead and scan the 2 bin, which we know this belongs in C15. So I'll just click there. And again, it moved from my transit bin to the bin that we selected. All right, and so those are the functions that we've gone over so far. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Alex to get into our next functions.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Josh. So with that main demo and the other ones that we talked about, again, those are a lot of the core functions that we're going to see more on a day-to-day warehouse, kind of working throughout the day. Now, these next functions are more that we would do kind of maybe one-off or just really nice check-offs that we would have throughout the day. Now, the first one is going to be palette inquiry. So palette inquiry is where you're going to go when you need total visibility. It's going to allow us to scan that palette ID, and it's really going to show us a full resume of that palette for delivery. So it's going to show us that customer, the route, the case count, and it's going to tell us who even picked it. Now, on this page, one of the most powerful features is going to be that QA and error check. So let's say that a picker had to cut products during the pick. They're going to get a message and those items will be highlighted and flagged. Now with that flag, we can go in and see the red flag and just hit the QA button just to do a deep dive verification and see, hey, what happened? Why is this error? Why was it cut? Anything like that. So a great way to kind of see what happened on that pallet. On pallet inquiry, there is also now a progress bar just to help you gauge the flow of your shift. And another cool function is there is a side loader bay layout that you can see. So from pallet inquiry, if you are using a bunch of side loaders or you are loading into a side loader, you can go into the side loader bay layout and it's going to give your team a visual map of exactly where that pallet needs to sit in the bay. So again, we all know side loaders. If it's side loader bay 5, we know exactly that that pallet needs to go in that bay. Now with pallet inquiry, we also use the screen to make sure that just every pallet is QA approved and print ready. So that way the loading process is a breeze. So it's really a great line of defense for that perfect delivery and making sure that we are up to date, ready before we get it loaded and delivered. Now, the next function I want to talk about is inventory count. Now, inventory count, again, may sound simple, but it is really the backbone of our warehouse's health. When we go ahead and start a count, the first thing that we're going to want to do is select that adjustment bin. Now, I mention this because the adjustment bin is really the holding area for discrepancies. So we want our variances to go here so that way we can review them and write them off at a later date rather than letting them mess up our live inventory immediately. So that's why I want to preface right when you go into inventory count, we want to click that adjustment bin. Now again here, the golden rule that I'm going to say is we're not going to rely on Encompass and we are going to count what we physically see in front of us and not what we think should be there and not what's maybe on the load sheet or what was told to us should be in there. We are counting the physical reality of what is in front of us. So once we go in and identify that bin and that product, we can go in and enter the count, hit next, and the app is just going to let it flow, take you through the work process. If there's multiple products in that bin, it's just going to go to the next product once you count that previous product in. And again, a great way to count a bin specific. Kind of like the question we got asked earlier, you can count the bin total or you can count a specific product within just that bin. Now, let's say that you find an item on the shelf or in that bin that just doesn't belong there, or maybe it's new and it just was never counted in. That's where we can go in and click the scan new product to add it on the count on the fly. So again, this is great to make sure that we're killing that ghost talk and we're actually counting what is physically in front of us and putting it into Encompass Mobile. With that, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our next function, which is going to be replenishment or replenish in the system. The process in the app is really straightforward when it comes to replenish. We can go up, we scan the bin that needs the product, and if the product has already been assigned to it, then the app and Encompass is going to pull it up instantly. From there, the prompt is going to tell you the from bin. We're going to be able to select our backstock and then enter the quantity, hit next, and just keep moving. So that way we're making sure that our front lines are ready to be picked and just ready for our pickers. Now, one great thing that I want to mention with Replenish is if you're a high volume replenisher, you know your stuff, you have been here for so long, you aren't just waiting for the system to tell you that a bin is empty. You know your top sellers, so we don't have to just start at an empty bin. Let's say that we have a top seltzer, that Nimbus Nectar that we know is going to be hit hard today. We can go straight to that pick bin, look it up, find the backstock, and move it forward right away. So I want you to know that you are the expert in this and you know what needs to be replenished so that way you can stay ahead of that picking wave. So this is a great tool to go in there, do it right away, get those front lines ready. Now, here is also where I wanted to just discuss the difference between directed replenish and directed inventory count besides the other ones. Again, we aren't touching on those more. But directed is more of a task, as we like to call it, where if you just do not have the experience or you want to make sure that your team is doing exactly what you want them to do, this is where you can set it up on the server side and create a directed replenishment task, create a directed inventory count task. That way, when your users get into the warehouse, they can go directly to that directed replenishment. They click on it and it tells them exactly what they need to replenish. So it's not so much as ad hoc or on the fly counts or replenishes. It's more of that designated tasks. So that's the difference between directed and regular. Again, we're just sticking with regular because we can't do the server side right now. We're focusing on Encompass Mobile. With that, the last function that I want to get into is truck return, and then I'm going to hand it back to Josh. We're going to go through the demo, come back, do a little wrap up, and then if there's time for some questions. So with truck return, this really closes our day in the life of a warehouse story. It's where we're going to close the loop by reconciling everything that left the warehouse this morning, and then we're going to compare it to what was loaded, what was actually sold, what was physically sitting back on the truck, and just make sure that the system matches the reality 100% before we all go home. So what this step really does is it really helps drive the end of day confidence and gives you that finalized route activity, feeding clean, accurate data, and just making sure for financial sake that everything is good and ready to go. So we really are talking more than just the case here. We are talking about the cash, the cash. Yeah. So with that, truck return is going to reconcile all receipts and deposits and ensure that every payment is collected on the route and ready for the bank. Now, the last thing I want to state with this one before we get into the demo is as managers, there is a dashboard that you can utilize, and that's going to be the daily best practice dashboard. So we want to be able to see those load sheets move from the to balance to be ready to pick for the end of the day or ready for end of day, I believe it is. So when that's done, we know that your inventory asset accounts are accurate and that warehouse is ready to really do this all over again. Do that whole warehouse process again or within the hours, depending on how your warehouse app operates. So With that, I know that was a lot of talking, and I want to be able to show you this in real life. So I'm going to hand it back to Josh so that way he can click through this.
Thank you, Alex. Let's go ahead and get back into our simulator here. Here we go. All right, so the first thing that we went over was palette inquiry. So let's go ahead and show you that. So you can scan any palette here to pull up its information. So I have an example one here that I'll go ahead and enter the ID. All right, and this is going to pull up all the information. So you are going to see the customer, route, case count, even the specific picker as well. You can scroll down to see the products and the load sheet that it's on. Again, that QA function can be really important. And clicking in there, you can choose your QA method. We're not going to go through the full process for now, but again, that is a very important function just to maintain accuracy of your data. And you can even load on truck from here as well. Okay, next function we're going to go ahead and go over is inventory count. So we'll go ahead and click into inventory count. And then as Alex had stated, you do want to make sure you're using your adjustment bin because this is going to show you all the discrepancies and variances between your recorded stock and what you're actually physically counting. So first I'll just go ahead and scan the bin, which we're going to use C15. And by clicking show products, you're going to see a full list of what should be here in the bin. Now I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to find our Wind and Clouds Anniversary Golden Ale. Now, as I click into this, you're going to notice that the system isn't showing an expected quantity. This is because it wants me to report what I actually physically see in front of me. So this goes back to do not lie to Encompass. You want to make sure that you're entering everything accurately and you're just reflecting what's actually going on in your warehouse in real life. So yeah, let's say I see one pallet in front of me, so I go ahead and click one and hit next. And you're going to see that you did count 110 cases into that bin. And if I scroll down, where's my there we go. But you're going to see that it did update in the bin as well. And we can exit through counting other products. And we have successfully completed that count. Now for replenishment, it's going to be under the move section. And the first thing you're going to want to do is scan your product or your bin. Let's say that I have our best-selling product, which is, again, that Wind and Clouds 19th Anniversary Golden Ale. Make sure I have that ID. Okay, so if we wanted to move this product from backstock to the pick bin, we would just want to go ahead and go into the backstock bin. And if we wanted to go ahead and fill in a certain quantity, we would just go ahead and enter that here and replenish that back to our pick bin. We just click next. It'll show you the bin. Again, it's put it into our transit bin, which just means it's in my inventory. And clicking the bin will complete that replenishment. So pretty simple. And last thing we'll want to go ahead and get into is our truck return. So you'll go ahead and hit load sheet load / return. And you're going to select your date. I know I'm working with this load sheet here. And the first thing it's going to want you to do is lock your invoices. So let's say for this invoice, I am going to go ahead and lock them. Let me actually go back, because in this example, I do actually want to only have this one locked. And then let's say that we wanted to go ahead and void this one. So let's say that the delivery driver had brought it, but they had refused the order and it came back. So if you wanted to void the invoice entirely, you could just go ahead and click void invoice, click the reason, and that invoice will be completely voided. You will see the cases have been removed as well. But now that these are both locked, I can go ahead and go into the count-in. Okay, and so for our first product, we noticed that there is some breakage for these. So we'll go ahead and enter these two as breakage. Hit done, and you'll notice that error unpopulate. And this one we'll say was out of code. And you'll just want to fill in everything that you're seeing in front of you, return to the warehouse. And then once you have completed those, you'll notice that we have our empty keg as well. So we'll go ahead and enter that as keg. And we have resolved all of the count-ins. And so we can go ahead and click Save Changes. Okay, you're going to see a list of invoices. You can go ahead and check mark and mark as returned. And that will complete the return process. All right, so that goes over all of our functions. I'll go ahead and pass it back over to Alex, and we'll go ahead and wrap up.
Awesome. And I did just have a few key takeaways, and then I really want to save time for some questions because I do know that there is one that came in. So, really quickly with key takeaways, I'm going to go through these pretty fast. But the first one is definitely being proactive in replenishment. So, again, not waiting for that bin to hit zero and searching for those high volume SKUs and making sure that the picks are full before the shift starts. With quality control, just using that pallet inquiry to make sure that that QA is good, verifying the pick is perfect, and we flag any errors before they go on the truck. Utilizing our detective toolbox, so using that warehouse search, finding those homeless products, editing the bin inventory just to disconnect any product from a bin without affecting the count. And then lastly, using that clean close. So having that daily best practices dashboard used before you leave, making sure the my inventory is set to zero or there is no inventory left in your virtual box. Those are all great key takeaways that I want you to really pull from this webinar. And then lastly is my favorite again, which is going to be the golden rule, which is if it moves on the floor, it moves in Encompass, and we are not lying to Encompass. So again, that's my golden rule. With that, I do want to leave room for some questions just because I know there is some.
All right. Thanks, guys. So while you finish typing in your questions here, I'm going to do a little wrap-up spiel. So don't panic. Type in your questions. Just want to thank everybody for coming today. And thank you, Alex and Josh, for your time. We do have several more sessions of Skills Kickstarts coming up on a bunch of topics. So check out that Skills Kickstart dashboard on e-learning. We do have another session today on Encompass Mobile Basics for sales and delivery with me right after this. So if you are looking to come to both, we will see you there in a few minutes. When we end the session, there is going to be a really short survey that pops up with a few questions. We really appreciate your feedback if you would take the time to answer those questions. And then we will post the recording of this session by the end of the day today so that you can share it out or watch it again later. And I will ask our one question that is sitting in here. And again, if you have any, go ahead and type those in. So the question we have, I think, Alex, you started answering this one, and it is about replenishment. So so everybody in the crowd kind of knows what we're talking about here. The original question was, when I'm counting and I find a pick bin that is empty, is replenish what I use to tell the warehouse that a product needs to be refilled? And then the follow-up question here is, I do not physically move the product. Other than tracking down a warehouse person, is there a feature that will allow me to create a list of items that need to be refilled?
Yep. So that's a great question. I'm glad you followed up with that one as well, just to make sure that we are all on the same page, because me typing fast probably did not clarify everything. So, like you said, when you are going through that inventory count, blah, blah, you don't want to go and just flag down someone in the warehouse to get this going for you. If you do have the permissions within Encompass Mobile and you are able to see a lot more of those functions, this kind of goes back to our directed replenishment, just because we didn't talk about it too much. But in that directed replenishment, again, this is a signing task to a lot of those users in the warehouse. And in that directed replenishment, there is a function called Direct to Replenish. And if you click on that in Encompass Mobile, there is I believe it says generate task or create task, and that's going to automatically create that task so that way someone could go and do that replenishment. So that way you're not walking away from that bin thinking, oh my gosh, what product did I need to replenish? What bin was it? You can go in while you're right there, create a directed replenish task, and that way it gets sent to a user to go replenish that right away. So again, we didn't cover that just because it is on that directed and kind of assigning, since this is basic, but there is that option if you have those permissions and you do see that.
And Stephanie, we do have a session specifically on directed replenishment that's in our recording archive. If you want to know more about that, there's a whole hour-long session just on that. So it'll deep dive into it for you if you want to know more about it. And I don't see any other questions that have come in. So thank you, both of you. We will wrap up for the day and hopefully we see some of you in the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.